there it is. Credits. And look at that. I made the right decision yesterday to not continue. All right. Well, that is Bug Fables, the everlasting sapling conquered. Woot woot. Just to I have to also note that this was a viewer requested game by Heels. So thank you very much, Heels, for the request. I can't alt tab because it'll get rid of the credits. So I can't give my first impressions at the moment, but we can go back to that. My overall thoughts from this game, I thought it was okay. The game itself is enjoyable, and it has a pretty neat combat system. It does feel like an improvement, or maybe improvement is not the right term for it, but like the game feels like it takes a good approach to the game that it is emulating, I suppose, because there's a very specific game that this game is certainly taking after. And I think what brings this game down for me is the game that it emulates is not necessarily the game that I'm just like super interested in playing. And so when we get around to aspects like the art style, it's like, sure, I really enjoy bright colors and whatnot art style, but it's also like pop-up books, and like the animations aren't like they're very simplistic because it's like paper cutouts and things like that. So the art style is not necessarily something that I would gravitate to and be like, yeah, I really like this. It's very stylized, and so it's kind of one of those, like you love it or you hate it. And for me, it's just one of those scenarios where, I lean towards not finding as much enjoyment from the art style, even though the art style is really, really good. You don't find too many games that look like this, and for what you see, all the characters are all really well done. Like, it's great. Let me see. It also goes into like the story. I don't think the story is necessarily something that I wanted to gravitate to, or felt like it was working for me as much as I wanted it to. And that's not necessarily to say that I didn't feel attached to the story, because like the elements of the story are certainly things that I like in other games. Like we're going on an adventure, and we're stopping this evil guy from taking over the world. Like these are very common aspects in RPGs out there, and this game doesn't necessarily make that a worse story to experience. I just think that the other aspects that compound or create the game just didn't make it as impactful for me, such as like the dialogue. The dialogue is not like super childish or anything like that, so that's a plus. But I do feel it leans more towards, you know, we are E for everyone. And as a whole, that's just not the, like, those are typically not the stories that I want to engage with. I don't like the power of friendship and all that. And that's not necessarily to say that this game relies on that, but I think this game is just very reminiscent of, like, if we were a party of a bunch of children and we were going on an adventure to save the world, and you know, our bond with each other was what was keeping us together and whatnot. It's not as interesting to me, but it's not necessarily a worse story. It's just something that I don't necessarily gravitate to. The combat. So one of the, I think the combat is fine, but one of the issues that I have with the combat is that I don't really feel like I felt progression. One of the nice things about RPGs is you get new weapons, you get new armor, which in turn means you take less damage, you deal more damage. And in this game, it's kind of static. There are certain aspects and there are certain mechanics that manipulate that a little bit, but it wasn't to a degree that is typical with RPGs, at least on like the common sense. And you know, at some point I would have liked to see, you know, like, hey, your characters do 1 more damage or something like that, because it just it started getting to the point where it's like, okay, I'm doing 4 to 2 damage per character, but you know, like boss HPs kept going up and stuff like that, and you know, boss damage was going up, and so it's like everything around me is getting stronger, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm getting stronger. With that said, I did like the medal system. I thought it was pretty cool, and I liked the customization aspects of it, and I did feel powerful at certain times when I got certain medals. I even though I didn't use certain medals, I do like the implied synergy for a variety of them as well. I think that's super cool, and you know, like, even if I didn't engage with it, I can see how maybe I would go about utilizing it. Let me see. I wish the inventory limit was actually higher as well. Primarily because I don't necessarily think it's very easy to get a lot of money. And it doesn't seem like an inventory limit is necessary if the reason it's there is to, you know, make sure you don't stock up on a bunch of items or whatever. Because at least from my experience, using items is kind of a big deal. You're losing damage, bosses are healing, they're dealing damage to you. Some bosses have 2 turns in a row, they're summoning enemies and things like that. And so when you have to use an item, like, it's not a simple endeavor. You're getting behind on the damage race, and then the very next turn, you're once again getting further behind on the damage race because you might have to heal again. So The inventory limit, I think, could have been removed or increased drastically. Didn't seem necessary for it to be there. Um, Let me see. Is there anything else that I want to say? Um, Nothing else is coming off the top of my head, so I'm just gonna grab my thoughts here real quick. Um, 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 um. For my first impressions, which were from day 1 and 2, I'm not much of a fan of this writing style. There's certainly many highlights, especially characters like V and even Leaf, but it feels too simplified to me. It feels like it was written to still appeal to a younger audience, and that isn't compelling for me. I think that's a very succinct way of explaining what I had there. I didn't mention characters, but V is definitely the coolest and bestest character in this game. V is silly, but has like this aggressive outlook that I gravitate to a lot. V is like my spirit bug or something. For the story, was it satisfying? Sure. Did it feel complete? Yes. How was the pacing? Pacing was, I would say it was fine. It was fine. For gameplay mechanics and design, I spoke about that stuff. Dungeons weren't too bad. For cardinal sins, I don't think there's any cardinal sins. Oh, there's that. Sound and music. I thought the music was okay. Again, like it's not necessarily my kind of music for the majority of the game, but some of the encounter tracks were pretty nice, and they had some elements in there that I really enjoyed. So there was definitely that. I spoke about the graphics. Is the game worth recommending? Um, I think this one's probably an easy recommend, especially towards the end. There, it seems like, I mean, there's at minimum several things that you can engage in. There's all those side quests. There's the arcade. Somewhere out there, you can turn in those crystal berry things. I didn't find that. There's the Coliseum. You could probably revisit that. There's the trial fights with the professor guy. There's quite a bit that seems accessible. Um, if the developer is watching, um, I think for the most part, this game is it's definitely very good. You know, I think it sets out to do it accomplishes what it sets out to do. And I think it makes some great improvements on the formula as well. I think basically the only issue that it comes down to for me is I don't necessarily like this style of game. It feels like it's I feel like catered is uh the wrong terminology here, the wrong uh, implication, I suppose. But it's it's it leans towards wanting to appease, perhaps, That still doesn't sound great, but appease a younger audience. And um, as as that aspect grows within a game, it becomes much less appealing to me because I don't want to necessarily say that I prefer mature games or games that tackle more mature themes and dialogue and things like that. But it's just that I I don't see the appeal of tackling the younger audience themes, I suppose. Uh, it gets to the point where it gets childish, and I don't necessarily enjoy the childish aspects of games and like talking to characters like they're children and all that other stuff. That being said, you know, there are plenty of moments in this game where uh, they that approach is not taken. So, you know, there is that. Would I want a sequel? Um, I think a sequel would be interesting. I don't think I would definitely say I wouldn't go out of my way to play it. But you know, I would certainly be intrigued regarding it. That much I could say. So to reiterate my overall thoughts, I thought the game was, you know, overall okay. Um, at least, you know, from like my personal enjoyment factor, you know, the game is you know, if you were to rank games or something like this, I would certainly say that this game ranks much higher uh, than where my enjoyment puts it. But you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you like what you experience, and sometimes you don't. Um. Anyways, I think that's all that I have. So I'm gonna end my thoughts here, and I'm gonna catch up with that. Oh well, I guess while we're doing that, I can press this button and we can see what happens here. We're the best. Don't let the praise get your head or get to your head, V. Team, thank you once more. You've said thanks like a billion times already. Stop. Right, sorry. You don't have to say sorry either. Alright, fine. I'm coming out and saying it then. I have a request. What's up? Last time we visited the wild swamplands, it was most unpleasant. But could we go there once more? I would like to visit my friends and to let them know of our triumph. Alright, yeah, we can do that. Count on it, Kabu. Do you two have any requests as well? Well, I still haven't fixed stuff with Sis. I've got to apologize. Curses, I forgot. You've both helped us a lot already. We'll help you do these. Alrighty then, it's our next mission. Let's go. Let's see. Woot. Alright, yeah, ending thoughts here. Yeah.